Stealing is not good. Except when you steal like an artist. In this episode of my world famous YouTube series I call YouTube Art School, I'll show you how to effectively take from other artists to level up your own work, but in a way that nobody would ever be able to call plagiarism. Stealing the ingredients, not the recipe, so to speak. But there is an art to it. Classes start. Alright, class is in session. Pay attention and pay the class fee of either one like or one sub so I can buy groceries this week. Thank you. So I'm going to start with the top wanted level. What you'd want to focus on if you're anywhere near like a beginner artist to a mildly experienced artist. This gets 3 wanted stars because we're going to be taking from others the most at this level. All again, without ruffling anyone's feathers. Right now, it's time to collect a bunch of references because I'll show you how to steal like a beginner artist. You might be wondering why the heck I'm making a video on something that sounds as bad as stealing, but you'll see there's nothing actually bad about it. More like the opposite, where it's one of the best ways to level up early on in your art journey. So let's say I'm a beginner and I've gathered these references here to help myself draw a new character. Already, we're doing good, using references rather than trying to draw something from imagination. There's no better way to improve. But now, how do I steal from all of these references without getting in trouble? Well, the idea is to steal the ingredients, not the recipe. The recipe in this case here, for example, would be the sum of all the stylistic choices that the artist made. That was a bit of a mouthful, but like the way they draw the facial features, like the style of the lines, the color palette, the style of the shading, how they draw the anatomy, etc. It's all those things combined that create the artist's special recipe or style. We're not stealing that.
Stop.
That would be bad. Again, we're not gonna touch the recipe, but the ingredients that make up that style, those are usually fair game. If you think about it, there are many different ways to draw anime eyes, for example, and nobody owns the anime style. So an acceptable way to steal at this level might be to take these 3 eyes from different artists and grab something from each to create a kind of a Frankenstein's monster. Except it's just a new eye. Maybe we can then get the nose from another artist we like, and the way another draws the mouth. See how we're just stealing the ingredients? Stealing this way is fine in between artists because that's literally how each of our favorite artists learned to draw and developed their own style. But we'll see how to get to an actual personal style by stealing later. We're just beginners now, so there's a lot more emphasis on using the references to help fill up our mostly empty visual library. No point talking about style yet, that comes further down the line. So anyways, maybe I like the pose in this photo, so let's grab that. The way this artist shaded his drawings looks cool, so maybe let's steal that. And perhaps color it using this other artist's color palette. Hopefully you get the idea. We collected a bunch of ingredients from different artists and put them together ourselves. You just want to make sure that you don't steal the recipe or part of it by mistake. So use references from many different sources, because the fewer you use, the more likely you are to get into plagiarism territory.
Stop.
Now, I think you'll agree that you can't really call yourself a chef when you buy like a pre-mixed cake, but you still gotta mix in some ingredients, right? And bake it, so you still have a say in whether it turns out good or burnt. And well, we're kind of doing the same thing here, but with art at this level. And this is what I would argue is the best way to get faster for beginners. The best way to use references. But we don't want to be stuck there. We can't really say it's our recipe at this point. So for this next level, we'll take significantly less from our references, which is why we only get 2 wanted stars. Much less likely to get in trouble. And at this level, you're past the beginner stages. You're more experienced as an artist, so the difficulty is also higher. So instead of taking bits from our references, we'll take the general idea and then tweak it a bit based on our preferences. So here's another character that I'm starting as an example again. And I really like the pose from this reference photo. By the way, I'll put a link to where I get my reference packs in the video description if you're curious. There's so many to choose from there. But anyways, I like this pose, but I have more experience now, and maybe I prefer when the anatomy is more exaggerated, like this. See the difference? Rather than copying part of the reference one-to-one, I'm running it through, let's call it like a personal style filter. It's still clearly the same pose, but it's different. That's what we're talking about at this level. So similarly, if I find this reference to be a good match for what I'm trying to draw, I can grab it, but again, run it through my personal filter, which might just result in something like this. Again, it's the same direction and everything, but it's different. And we're just going to be doing this with every single reference that we use now. And the resulting character should be a lot less like a cake mix now, figuratively speaking, and a lot more like your own recipe. And at this level is usually when your style, will start to take root. But we still have the final level to check out: how I and most other experienced artists steal from references. And together, you'll want to brush up on your fundamentals and make sure you have a really strong foundation as an artist. Something that most artists are often missing. Even pros, even though it might be just partially. So, to make sure that you're fully equipped, I recommend you check out my art program with the link down in the video description. And real quick, it's a complete art education program with assignments, also a week-by-week study guide to take your hand through all of the content, and an awesome private Discord community to make sure that you're not alone as you level up your skills. And as a reminder, this week, exactly 5 years ago, is when I released the full program, and it's only gotten better since. And so to celebrate the anniversary, you'll be able to get the program at a huge discount for just a couple more days. So make sure you check the link down below for all the deets. I don't want you to miss out on this. And if you're already a student, well, thank you. All right, we're finally at the last level. Just one wanted star this time because, you guessed it, we'll be taking even less from our references. And it's hardly stealing at this point, much more like just taking inspiration. But let's actually see how it's done. Now, if you're experienced, you probably already know all of this, but if you're not, this is kind of meant as a preview of what you're working towards. Starting a new character again, I'll use another reference for the pose, but rather than just stylize it, I might actually change quite a bit of it too. I'm really only taking inspiration from it. So my style is now clearly visible in how I draw my lines and how I draw the anatomy, what I choose to highlight and what I choose to only suggest. At this level, the use of reference is only for certain things rather than for the entire character. Like we use it to fill in the blanks in our knowledge. Like maybe I'm about to color this, but I don't know, not inspired. So I might grab a reference and take inspiration from that instead. I'm not just going to steal the same color palette though, that's beginner level stuff. Instead, I might take the complementary colors used here and decide that maybe I'll like invert them and feature them on the character's outfit. If I'm stalling on the lighting next, well, maybe I can use a light setup similar to this other reference, but change the light colors. And you can see how at this point you could really say that the work is fully yours. It's a character in your distinct style, even though we're still using references here and there. But this process is the exact same that I used when I was working at Blizzard, for example, as did all the other artists there. Their references are there now only as inspiration or to fill in small gaps in our knowledge. And I covered some examples already, but here are a few more that might be useful to see a demo of. So maybe you'd want to steal the shading from another artist. Let's just say these are all from different artists since the style is so different. One is cell shaded, the other one is shaded like a 3D model, and the other one here is just partially shaded. I see those as variants of the same ingredients, right? Again, nobody's got the monopoly on shading methods. Everybody's just doing variants of what others have done in the past, so it's fair play. Shading is also very dependent on the brushes used. So again, let's say that I wanted to steal that kind of brushwork or like shading texture. The first thing I would do is try to zoom in and see if I can create a brush that looks as close as possible to the one that I see being used. Something like this, maybe? But you don't have to do this if you ever wanted to steal my brushwork. Instead, you can just go ahead and download my brushes with the link in the video description. Much easier. And let's just do one last one. You can also steal the presentation from other artists. Like usually it's safe to copy trends that everybody seems to be doing. Trends that started decades ago, like adding a chromatic aberration effect to your drawings. Like you can see here where the color channels are slightly offset, which gives us this colorful outline. This is an old trend that we were doing like 20 years ago. Just like adding noise to the finished piece rather than leaving it as is. You can see the difference here. It does add a nice touch sometimes. Another old trend that the Spider-Verse movies made popular again is the use of halftones in some ways. Some artists use it differently, but we're all stealing from each other. And that's kind of the point with art. We all learn by copying what others are doing, and then eventually, hopefully, add our own spin to it. We use the same ingredients, but bake different things with them. Or at least we should. Stealing like an artist can be bad if you do it wrong. Like if you steal from too few sources without adding your own distinct spin to it. That's just plagiarism. Very bad. You should stay away from that. But when you source tiny bits of material from many different sources, both artists and real life, then you're doing it right. That is the proper way to use references. And doing it right is how you level up your art super fast. So yeah, hopefully now you should know how to properly steal like an artist if you didn't already. Now go out there and steal some shit.